Okay, welcome back to Database School. I'm your host, Aaron Francis, and I'm here today with my friend Jesse Hanley. Jesse runs an email service that I actually use, and I pay full freight for. So even though we're friends,
Thank you.
you gotta pay your friends. And so I use Bento, love it. We use it for all of our courses. We use it for aaronfrancis.com. We use it for everything. So Jesse's running a pretty big operation over there, and he does it in a very lean way. So I'm excited to talk to him today. Jesse, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jesse. Aaron is a customer of mine, which I appreciate very much. But yeah, I run Bento, which is an email service provider. We predominantly send marketing email, but recently I've got more into transactional email, password resets, and all that kind of jazz. And I kind of run it out of my home in Japan and have for the past 4 years in Japan. So yeah, it's a fun, very calm business to run. So I very much kind of enjoy
See,
running it here.
this blows my mind that you say that email and being an ESP is a calm business to run. First of all, how many is it? It's just you and you have some customer support, is that right? To cover some other
Yeah,
time zones or
it's yeah. So I'm the primary developer, and then I've got Anya in support. She covers kind of the Eastern and the US time zones when I'm sleeping. And so if something goes down, then I get a call, wake up, and I'm on call and all that kind of jazz. We also have contractors for various different parts of the operation. So, for example, at the moment, I've got the Fast Ruby team. They're working on upgrading
cool.
our main monolith
Yeah.
app and all that kind of stuff. And we'll kind of go into why they're working on that at the moment, because that kind of ties into some of the other stuff, database related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've got like deliverability consultants that I work with. I just kind of bring in experts. And so the way that I've tried
Okay.
to build the team is less kind of full time on the payroll stuff and more kind of experts, contractors that kind of either work consistently or they kind of come in for very specific jobs, come in and then bounce out. And I've always liked working that way. It's kind of really fun.
Yeah, and it's shocking to me because you run support out of a Discord that is very active, and
Yeah.
you are very active in there. And I'm like, when does
But it's
Jesse
not
one?
hard.
When does he sleep? And two, when does he develop? Because I know he lives in Japan. He's in there talking to customers like me who can't figure out how to do something. And you're like, hey, use the button that's right in front of your face. And I'm like, oh yeah, you should put a button there. So how do you like manage your time that you're always in this Discord or responding to my DMs?
Um, uh, well, so like Discord is like there's a little bit of a tangent. Discord's really nice for support because I've got it on my phone. I can
Mm-hmm.
quickly message people, respond really fast. Luckily, like the software's not that buggy. Touch wood. So like often it's a user thing. Like they've accidentally deleted their DNS records in a migration, so they've just got to add them back
Correct.
again, and boom, their open rates back up. So 90% of the tickets are like either user errors or they're a little bit confused or they just need to like learn something. And so Discord's a nice medium. And also people are like less trying to work out like the PC way to say this. People are like way nicer on Discord than they are on email.
Interesting.
On email, people are like awful. They're like super rude, super blunt.
Huh.
Dear sir, dear ma'am, whom this concerns, F you, I've got an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on Discord, because there's hundreds of people observing them, they're super chill, right? And I
Oh,
I
that's
like I like
interesting.
that I like that dynamic of it. So from like a support perspective, it's very weird for customers to come into Discord, but when they see like a founder reply, they're like, "Well, this is awesome. I'm getting like a
Mm-hmm.
founder response." They get a response very, very fast, which is great. But also the exchange is a lot friendlier than elsewhere. So I kind of estimate that if I had to do email support, like I only get like 6 emails a day, 8 emails a day, like
That's
on email
awesome.
support, which is really really low. But that's actually been consistent for the last year, despite growing almost double in the last 12 months.
Wow.
So that's been interesting to me. And I think like if I didn't have Discord, maybe 2 to 3 full-time support people probably responding to tickets, and they would have to be more skilled and all that kind of stuff. I also think people are a lot more chill in terms of response times on Discord. Like they're okay
Mm-hmm.
waiting a little bit if I'm sleeping, because Anya responds straight away, says Jesse will get back to
Right.
you, and like just that quick response is that's totally cool. So yeah, it's a different way of running the business, but I actually think it's calmer. It's weird at the start, but it's a calm way to do it.
Yeah, it is weird at the start. And as a customer coming into a Discord and seeing all the activity made me feel like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. So to hear you say it is calmer, I guess the activity was going to happen either way. Like you were either going to get emails or people were going to ask in Discord. But the
Yeah.
observation effect is very interesting, that people are better behaved when they're being observed. That is very
And
clever. Hey, we'll get back to the interview in just 1 second, but since you're here, you like databases, you probably like Postgres. Let me tell you about mastering Postgres. This is a course that I am teaching coming out October 15th. This is a way that you can master the most important part of your stack, your database. So go to masteringpostgres.com and sign up to hear when we release it. Okay, back to the interview.
Yeah, and we've had instances in the past. This hasn't happened like in a while, where European customers tend to be a little bit more like blunt, especially like Dutch customers. They tend to be very blunt with their feedback, and we've had instances where people have been a little bit too blunt with their feedback, and then almost like, I don't know, blood cells on like a virus or something. They all just like come in and kind of defend, and that's really nice, because sometimes if you get an email that's like super blunt, you're like, oh, I'm a bad software maker, I'm going to shut this business down. But in the community thing, it's just a little bit more chill. And I think in addition, Discord has been like another benefit, because like if there is an issue, like I accidentally shipped like a bad conditional, and a button that wasn't supposed to be hidden was hidden. This happened yesterday. I like pushed up some UI changes, right? And people come to the Discord so fast with, where's that button? And I can quickly respond, all right, it's shipped 15 minutes, it's fixed. So anytime that there's an issue, it's like such like a, yeah, I just get this like live pulse through the Discord that maybe QA or, a test can't really pick up. And that's been really good. Or maybe like a button's missing. People are happy to come in and be like, where's this thing? In Discord, but they're never going to email me that, because that's so much effort. But on Discord, they're happy to do it. So there's a whole bunch of weird kind of benefits to running a business like that.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, because I had kind of always wondered why Discord, but this is all making sense now. And so, tell us a little more. You are fully bootstrapped, and if you have the fast Ruby team, it's all Ruby on Rails. Is that right?
Yep. So
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing Bento like 6 years. The first like 4 years, I was running my agency full time. And then I exited that in COVID, and then I went full-time onto Bento, and then kind of like really found my footing. For the most part, I was like running an agency, a marketing agency, and learning to code on the side. And the way that I kind of improved my skills was I brought on really smart people like Andrew Culver. I brought them in, I learned from them, and then would take over more of the code base as I kind of got them to build stuff almost for me. And then I would go, okay, cool. Like that's how you're supposed to do it properly. Like that's how a pro does it. And every kind of core feature that I've built, I've done it that way. I found an expert, built with them, learned from them, taken over the code base, and kind of that's been the process with Bento. So yeah, and the first 4 years was really just trying to like find my foot, and it took a really long time. Like there was lots of features that we launched that no one used. There was lots of products I was trying to like push on people that they never used. And then after I went full time, I kind of really narrowed in on the email marketing side of thing. I was like, well, like everyone like uses these features and they like using these features. I'm just going to keep pulling on that thread. And after I kept pulling on that thread, like I actually started to get some traction. And then the last 2 years has just been, no, we only send emails. and the more we leaned into that, the more people signed up, and the more people were like, I need to send emails. I'm going to try Bento. And yeah.
Amazing. And so where did you find, as you're like honing in your message, where are you finding that people are hearing about you? Like how it is a very crowded marketplace in terms of email, which is a great thing because everybody needs to send emails. So it seems like, Justin Jackson always talks about catching a wave, and emails still a wave. But where are you like carving out your niche amongst the other competitors?
Yeah, the way that I kind of like to explain it is Bento, for the most part, is kind of like a local coffee shop of email marketing providers, right? So where, yeah, you're right. You've got like MailChimp, ActiveCampaign. They're like the Starbucks or like the Tully's Coffee of chains. But just like a local coffee shop, people do tell others. We get customers from Twitter or referral, or you say it, or like someone tweets about it, or some indie hacker in Bali mentions it, or someone searches for like a LearnDash email marketing solution and come across that we integrate with them. There's a lot of stuff like that, which it's just kind of breadcrumbs that have been left on the web. And people discover these breadcrumbs, stumble, and then we become a category decision. So we become a decision out of many of the providers. And then our job from then is to be like persistent. So we've got retargeting ads, so people keep seeing us. And so that when they do make the decision to switch, they do decide to choose us. And then often it's because they've done a demo and they're like, okay, cool, I've got big company, local coffee shop. And I can actually speak to Jesse. I've done a demo with him. He's active in the Discord. I can see that if someone has a very specific email not being delivered, he's given the exact reason why. He's not gaslighting me. I'm going to go with that dude. And that's how we win business. And then from like the Bootstrap perspective, it's like, well, email is profitable. This like, you know, our customers, we price, we don't have free plans. We charge for everything. I charge you, or we charge everyone. And because of that, it's like a healthy, profitable business. And so I'm not too concerned in growing a lot faster. And we've got, you know, this morning I like banned 5 or 6 signups in the past couple of days. I'm just not interested in serving them. And so we don't have massive amount of signups. And so we can kind of keep afloat that way, if that makes sense. So
yeah, no,
YouTube videos, mentions,
perfect sense.
It's just all over the place.
Yeah, and having been around for 6 years with a good track record of supporting your people, I imagine the word of mouth starts to compound a lot more, a lot later in the game now. So you've been, you know, rolling this snowball for 6 years, and now people are like, hey, let's talk about Jesse, because I've been here for a long time.
Yeah, there was this, I won't mention his name, but there was this email copywriter. I think I like sent you in DMs. I was like, oh, go check him out. And I followed him from like 2010 to 2015, like reading all of his stuff, right? And then he heard through, I think Brennan Dunn, like referred him somehow. And it's just like everything's connected in this weird sphere where it's like this guy that I followed over a decade ago spoke to one of my friends. And then now this guy that I super respected is considering moving to us next month. And it's like, whoa, how'd that happen? Amazing. But you just don't know. And I think that the takeaway for me is always like, you just got to stay in the game a really long time. And like the key is just surviving. And if you survive, stuff works out. Like, and as long as, your North Star is survival, I think it all kind of pans out okay.
Yeah, and it sounds like you've optimized for survival with the no free tier. Everybody gets charged a fair amount, but everybody gets charged, and you're going to ban signups that would, I assume, end up being super problematic for your reputation, like your sending reputation or your other customers or something like that. And so you've put in some guardrails with an eye towards survival, it sounds like. Yeah.
Last night I banned someone in Austria because they kind of hurt our IP reputation on one mail stream. And it turned out it was one of my friend's girlfriends that signed up for a free trial. And so I had a lively debate with him last night about that approval. I just thought she was some Austrian customer, and I was like, all right, bye, during the free trial. And he was not happy. But yeah, we've got a very strict bar. And once she cleans up her list, she'll be back in.
Perfect. Well, good luck to her, and good luck to you and your friend's relationship.
He's a good customer.
Okay, so I want to talk tech choices a little bit. We've talked about Rails. You had Andrew Culver, so I assume this is either originally or still a bullet train application, which is
number
Andrew
one.
Culver built.
Bullet train install number one.
You're the first bullet train.
Origin customer number one. Origin customer number one. So we
did not know that.
So Bullet Train was built with Bento at the same time. So they that's kind of how it started, right? So the origin of Bullet Train, Bento was kind of the base project that was being dog fooded for the whole start. So that's how that worked, and me and Andrew caught up in Japan to initiate that. So
okay, I did not know that. That's good lore right there. So Bullet Train for the people that don't know is like it's more than an application starter kit. It's in the Rails space. Its closest analogy would be an application starter kit, but it's more like a framework on top of a framework, because there's lots of
generators and stuff.
There's lots of ongoing code generation and stuff like that, versus just like you get a starter kit and you eject and you keep going. So is it still like, have you outgrown it? Is it still bullet train down there?
Yeah. We pretty severely forked. Like I kind of went off the rails. I went off the rails a while ago. And so no, but also like different direction. Andrew stayed, I think, I gotta go check out the repo, but I'm pretty sure he stayed like relatively close to core, like stimulus, and used all that kind of JavaScript stuff. I wasn't so interested in that. I like React. I was React curious, and then I started really liking it after I started playing with it a lot more. And so a lot of like front end stuff in Bento is like React sprinkles on top. I use React components, and then like our flows automated, the diagram automation builder.
Yeah,
that's all just in React. So
there's no way you're doing that in Stimulus. Yeah. So the what he's talking about is there's a like automation engine kind of thing, and it's like on a canvas, and you can drag nodes in and connect them, and it's extremely powerful and also extremely impossible to do with HTML alone. So that makes sense to me. Okay, so let's talk Postgres. So your Rails, I gather you're still hosted on Heroku?
Yep. So we've got two apps on Heroku. We've got our kind of monolith app, and then we've got our chat app. Chat's like two-way conversations. They both live on Heroku. And then we also have our own sending servers. So we use a couple of third-party API providers, but we also have our own MTA network, and that is actually physically what delivers the emails to inboxes. So when aaronfrancis.com sends an email, it goes to our MTA, and we deliver it, not SendGrid, Postmark, all that kind of stuff. So,
really?
For the last year, all of your personal emails have gone through like Bento's network, not through any third-party provider. And
I
that's
didn't know
on
that.
Postgres too.
Let's take a little pause from Postgres. You're running your own mail servers? Isn't that like hard mode?
Yeah, it's extreme, dude.
So why are you running your own mail servers?
I don't know, because I don't know. I thought it was a good idea. It's been very traumatic. It's been quite a traumatic experience, but it's been quite enlightening. Let me. I just laughed so hard I almost cried. So it's been an experience. So I decided to do it because obviously as we scale, sending more emails costs more money, right?
Yeah.
And also, what happens if like one of the providers I use go down? I need redundancy in the system, or let's say like an automated system. This probably won't happen because like I've got enterprise accounts everywhere. But let's say like an automated system bans my account. I need to send. I can't not send.
That's not my problem. That's your problem. So
that's my problem, right?
Yeah. Which sounds terrifying.
I needed a way to have like resiliency in the network, and so having my own service was an exploratory project for me. And so I did explore that. I won't go into too much detail on like how I do it, but the end result is we've got servers up. We have multiple IP addresses. We send on them, and it's very, very different. It's more like, like last night I have like an open ticket with Hotmail asking them to like mitigate some of my new IPs and stuff, because you got to do that, or I got to do preemptive mitigation and all this. It's just very, very different. And so so we've got our own email service. I don't know what more to say about it.
First of all, I envy you.
You can ask
0%.
me questions.
No part of me envies what you do. Second of all, besides economics, has it been better for any other reason? Better deliverability, better control, fewer issues, or is it just like redundancy and economics?
It's redundancy and economics, which are honestly, frankly, like two very big parts.
Those are big parts.
It's a peace of mind thing, right? Which we're probably going into when we talk about Postgres. It's like everything that I'm trying to do is for peace of mind. And so, I like that aspect of it. Just feels nice to have my own stuff. I don't know. It's just cool to have like my own sending servers, that I control and I own. That's all on Hetzner, which is the current trend.
That's what everybody's talking about. Yeah.
And they're great. And it's like quite empowering. having my own box on Hetzner that sends
Mm-hmm.
emails and all that kind of stuff. And Hetzner, honestly, have been a pretty good provider. They opened up the ports, which is something that you need to do to allow us to actually like send out. And like they're pretty good when they deal with they get abuse requests and stuff. Like at one point, a whole bunch of like Brazilian ISPs were spamming them with abuse things that they've like just I don't know, just weird stuff, right? But Hetzner was pretty good at actually like talking through support not to shut down our box and all that. So they're a great provider. I really I like them. I like them a lot actually. But yeah, it's quite empowering once you get that box up and you're sending zero cost emails. You're like, whoa, that's different, you know?
Yeah, got a little taste of free emails. I'm sure that was exciting. This is very,
It is.
I mean, this is very on brand for the current Rails trend. It's more fun to be
It is.
competent, host your own stuff, and use Hetzner. That's big Rails right now. So you're
The
right in
base
line.
stack. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
Yeah.
that stuff is living over on Hetzner. Wild decision
Yeah.
to roll your own mail servers, but mad respect.
Thank
Talk
you.
to me about Heroku.
Yeah, so on Heroku we have like Monolith app, which is like a Rails app. We're working towards Rails 7 point something.
Okay.
And that is primarily a big Postgres instance, just like a single node instance. Then we have multiple Elastic instances supporting that, and I'll go into like the reasons why we have lots and lots of Elastic instances. And then I have like 3 Redis instances on there for a whole bunch of different things, just separating concerns, background jobs, caching layer, and etc. So yeah, WebSockets, all that kind of stuff. And Bento chat is very, very similar to like that stack as well.
But it's its own stack. It's got its own database and
Own
then Redis
separate.
and everything.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I assume you've been on Heroku since the very beginning and then just have continued to turn the dials as you've grown. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. And I've liked them for a few reasons. Like a kind of meta reason that I've liked it is with Heroku, once you start spending a lot of money, and you will spend a lot of money, and you're gonna you can sign enterprise contracts. Now, why that's beneficial to me is if there is an issue, let's say someone's account gets hacked, or let's say someone does, let's say our spam API doesn't catch something, and we start sending out a whole bunch of emails that shouldn't be sent out. That is a risk, right? And I spend so much time on this, it's not funny, to make sure that this doesn't happen. But on the case that it does, and a ticket gets raised to Heroku, if I am on their general population, they will shut me down, most likely, right? Until I respond to a ticket, they'll
Right.
shut traffic off, or they'll do something. Because I've got the is enterprise flag, that is much less likely to happen. And so what the advice that I've gotten speaking to a lot of insiders there, and actually just in general across any part of my stack, is like you want to get to enterprise as quickly as possible, just so you have that is enterprise flag. Yeah. Same with like Cloudflare. Once I had like a URL redirect abuse thing going on. Someone managed to find that they could shove us in between their redirect chain and use us. That got to Cloudflare, and Cloudflare was great about it. They like it was a ticket. They're like, sort this out, and I did, and it was all good. But I'm on an expensive plan there, so I think they were less likely to shut my traffic down straight away. So that's why I've stayed predominantly with Heroku for the last since the beginning.
Do you also get, and if you're not allowed to talk about it, that's fine. Do you also get cost savings? Like, do you pay a bunch up front to reserve some stuff, or you're laughing? I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, they changed like the pricing dynamics a little bit, and you now get to talk to a sales rep, which you can discuss things with, and you can potentially get discounts. I don't mind that. I don't mind the negotiation thing. What I don't like is, did you see that tweet that I posted about? It was like, you can put like a Redis production instance on a little USB drive, whatever. It was that thing. And then I posted that, and then I was like, I wonder if Heroku have like changed their pricing at all in a decade. And I went to Web Archive. It's the same. Their Redis instances are the same in a decade. So in 2015, like one of their instances is $200 a month, right? 1 gig of RAM. It's the same today, which is crazy to me. And on their Postgres instances, a decade, I think like all instances are maybe like beefed up 50% or something, a little bit more IOPS, but they haven't updated their pricing sheet in 10 years, which
Incredible.
I'll tell you how that makes me feel a little bit later. But yeah, it was quite eye-opening. I did that last week, and I kept writing a tweet and then deleting it. I was like so upset, and I was like, I'm just gonna like let this one slide, and I'll think about it for a little bit. But yeah, 10 years.
Well,
10
keep
years
thinking
of
about it
pricing
because that's a
changes.
good tweet. Yeah. Maybe take a little bit of the edge off, a little bit of the frustration, but that's a good tweet. You got to tweet that. That's good.
Yeah, it's
okay.
mind blowing.
You
But they've been great.
are-
They've been great. I just want to say something. They've been great vendors, and their uptime and reliability since booting off all their free users is very good. So I think
Oh,
after,
you actually saw a difference there.
yeah. Since I think it's Bob Wise. Since Bob Wise took over, I think from like the infrastructure and like reliability perspective, Heroku has been like phenomenal and great. From the pricing and product side, very slow. But I think that's like the Benioff grasp on that.
They're
more so than
inside
anything
the
else.
Borg now. Yeah, that makes
In the Borg.
sense. Okay, so you're over on Heroku. You must be storing unbelievable amounts of data because anytime someone clicks on anything in any email that I ever send, you write it down. You're very diligent. You write it down, you put it in the database. And I'm a little guy. So I imagine you've got people sending out hundreds of thousands of emails a month, and every single click is coming through you, to say nothing of all like the actual emails that you're sending. So what in the world, how are you storing all of this stuff in one massive database?
Most of them are just in like basic tables, an events table. We've got like an emails table. So very, very simple kind of setups. All the main pieces of data stored in there. We've got like some JSON B columns to store kind of the more blobs, which then gets pushed to Toast, I would assume, for the most part. Which hasn't, to date, hasn't really been like, I've read a lot of articles about like issues storing a lot of stuff to Toast, but we don't query a lot of that, which is where Elastic kind of comes in. So I haven't, we use Postgres kind of like as a primary data store more so than anything else, but not as our query store. And so, yeah, and some columns as well, like our emails one, they're very, very tiny. Like it's not that much data because I store the HTML in S3. And so I don't actually store that, right? So I send the email, store in S3, and then it's kind of like done, right? So there's not really too much storage issues there. So yeah, that's they're very lean rows. They're not too complex. So it hasn't really been too much of an issue.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So you're storing potentially billions of rows in here, but you said you're piping a lot of it out to Elastic to do the actual querying. So walk me through that, because that seems very clever.
So the way that I've kind of thought about Bento is because there's a couple of things that I've always wanted to be true of Bento. I've always wanted it to be lightning fast, and I've always wanted it to be calm for me personally to run. And so a lot of the way that I've like architectured Bento is I'm doing a lot of like just select ID queries. So I'm like selecting the exact records. I'm doing an association. There's indexes on that. User.emails, user.events, right? So that's always very, very lightning fast. When I'm doing more broader stuff, like a query over the whole tenant, so over the site, so Aaron Francis, I want to find all of your users, querying that in Postgres, which like I'm sure is quite possible. It's hard to get right at all scales, just because like people have so many different types of pieces of data. They've got different custom fields. They've got just it's very hard to understand and map to everyone's world and create indexes for everything.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example, because like when I send out an email to I sent out an email maybe yesterday or the day before, and I sent it to everyone that was on my list. So that's already narrowing it down from many, hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers to my little adorable list. But my list where people have this tag, list : SQLite. They don't have opt out : SQLite, and we didn't want to spam people, or rather send too many emails, so we also left out list : Postgres. So it's my users with these two tags, but not with this tag. And that's a hard query. That's a hard query to optimize. So how are you thinking about that?
So that's a hard query to optimize for Postgres, but that's not a hard query to optimize for Elastic. That is like
Bread and butter.
chips. Yeah, it's bread and butter for Elastic, right? And so the pipeline is like new data comes into our system, the user gets updated, we push that off to Elasticsearch, it gets indexed, and then it's instantly queryable, more or less, right? And the reason I wanted to do that is because I just didn't want to run migrations. Or like, let's say I had like new user request. A user goes, hey, I want to just find engaged people who engaged with my last broadcast. Like that's something that someone want. If I wanted to, like, I would potentially have to write like an extra query for it in Postgres. It may not be optimized. I'd have to write some more indexes, and that's not, to me that's not running a calm like company like or a dev cycle for me. So I kind of Elastic is very good just throwing whatever you want at it. It indexes it instantly. I just have to re-index all my users, and then now that's there to be queried whenever. And so I've just liked that pattern personally. And it also takes so much load off the database. So like our database runs very, very calmly. It's never querying too many users. And it's just a calm way to run it for me. The downside is it's expensive to run a lot of Elastic nodes, which you solve by just charging properly and being able to pay for them. That's like how I kind of see it. So with more money, it allows me to buy more hardware and hopefully push some more responsibility onto that hardware. And I love that Postgres Elastic kind of pairing. It just kind of, it works very well for how I run Bento at least.
So all these Elastic nodes, did you say 3? You have 3 of them?
4.
Okay, so these 4 Elastic nodes, are they are they serving different parts of the app? Are they all so they're serving different functional roles in the application, and you're pushing different sets of data to each one?
Yeah, so let's say there's like an Elastic users cluster, and then that has all the indexes for all my users, and all of them have different mappings and all that kind of stuff. And so that one's lightning fast. I've got like an email one, which I'm currently like restructuring and rebuilding now. I've got like an events one, et cetera, et cetera. So like that's kind of like how I split them out. I have, each cluster has its own responsibility, and I host that on Elastic's managed cloud, and they're great. They're great. It's a little bit expensive, but like I think I mentioned on Twitter last week, it's like a node went down, an Elastic engineer's paged, he's on it, all fixed. I go off to get my kid. Very, very, very nice kind of like setup there, and their support tickets are so fast, and that's quite nice.
And have you done the enterprise thing over there too, so that somebody's keeping an eye on all your stuff all the time?
Not so much. It seems like there's like some platinum support package that I have, and it seems like I get that with that. So more or less,
nice.
Okay. But yeah, back to like the Postgres stuff. It's just lots of selects, lots of single selects, very lean, insert, and then I'm just directly selecting most of the time.
Okay. Yeah, I've wondered because you and I talked a long time ago about storing JSON in relational database, and like how to query it in any which way that you want, and the answer is just like it's hard, man. Like especially when you get to the scale that you're at, it's just hard. Like it's doable, but at some point it starts to fall over, and so that's where Elastic really shines for you. And so how do you get it out of Postgres and into Elastic? Like what's the actual tool or mechanism that you're using there?
Yeah, so we use a gem called Search Kick, which I've kind of like hard forked. It's like a Rails gem. Andrew Kane built it. He's like a wizard. I love like all of his gems. And that handles most of the indexing. I forked it and modified it so it handles multi-tenant. So I can put tenants in their own bucketed cluster, like bucketed indexes, essentially. So 100 customers here, 100 customers there, etc. And gives me a lot more kind of control over that. Which was like a very big learning for me on like the Elastic side. But again, the whole pipeline is like user gets updated or an event comes in, push that to Sidekick, which is a background job queue. Sidekick then indexes it, and it's good to go. It's good to query from there. Yeah. And then on the reverse, it's like I build a segment, I grab the IDs, I grab all those IDs, and then I start emailing them and send them off to Sidekick to send all those emails on the reverse side.
Okay, so when you're coming out of Elastic, what you're pulling out of Elastic is primary keys, and then you're going back to Postgres, and Postgres is like, yeah, dude, I can handle that, and then you just pull all those.
I'm great at this. Yeah. So Postgres goes, I know what to do, baby. Give me those IDs.
Yeah,
it grabs those IDs
and
then just goes sends those emails out, right? But that's reduced so much anxiety for me. Right. So
Yeah.
and I love Postgres for that. It's great at looking up IDs, and I'm sure I could obviously use like anything. I could probably use SQLite if I wanted to. But
if you're just looking up IDs, my friend, I think you probably could.
yeah. In like other areas of the app, I'm sure there's like slightly more complex
Sure.
joins and stuff, but for the bulk of our querying, no, it's very, very light. It's, lots of lookups, but very, very, very simple lookups. And I just love that pattern of push stuff to Elastic, grab it from Elastic, do stuff with it. It's just very, very clean. And I love the flexibility that when a user throws something at me in Discord and says, hey, I need this new query. And I go, that's actually not a bad idea. I quickly add it to like the indexing. So I can just say, hey, in the index, add this to the mapping. And then I just reindex all that user's data, and then now they can query it freely. And I don't have to worry about like a big migration or any of that kind of stuff. So that works perfectly for me.
Those big migrations are not congruent with a calm business. They're just not. When you're gonna migrate over billions and billions of rows in a relational database, that's kind of terrifying. No matter how much tooling you have set up around it.
Yeah. The downside, like with this approach, which has been kind of nice because Postgres is now like its main responsibility is just to hold the data and store the data and do lookups on the data. I'm not like giving it too many fancy responsibilities. It means now like I've begun the process of going, okay, well, we're obviously going to continue still getting more data, and eventually I am going to cap out at my Heroku plan limit. Right. And so before that happens, I need to work out, all right, well, like, what's the plan? What's the strategy here? And then that's now where I'm kind of in this process of investigating. All right. And I've been investigating for a while, but now I'm starting to get a little bit more serious because I have a Heroku renewal coming up. And so I'm exploring a lot more options a little bit more intimately about, all right, how do I split this database like I have with Elastic, right? With Elastic, I've got my users, my events, my emails. I want my Postgres to be the same. I want everything, email responsibility here, event responsibility here, et cetera, just to remove some more anxiety and more stress from my life. And so that's currently my like big project at the moment.
So tell us, so we get a sense of scale. You said you're going to top out of Heroku. What is the top tier of Heroku Postgres, and how much headroom do you think you have until it's like game over, man?
Sometimes next year. Probably like mid. Yeah, probably like mid next year. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
No, that's plenty. That's plenty of time, but it's not terrible.
Heroku caps out, but competitors don't cap out at that. So that's as an aside.
True.
And it looks like Heroku's actually added a couple more plans. I think the standard plan, $12,000 a month. What are they doing over there? And it looks like the pricing table.
Is that called the Jesse plan?
That's 8 terabytes. So that's
terabytes.
That's yeah. So So that's the max plan. But regardless, I want to split out from that. And the solutions that I'm looking at is either I go to Crunchy. Crunchy's great because I can potentially have these multiple databases, and they allow me to scale, as it should be, RAM and storage. And because I'm not doing such expensive querying, that works so much better for me. Whereas Heroku, they're like, no, you need the big boy everything, right? And I don't need the big boy everything. And so Crunchy gives me that flexibility. The other option is I've also got Citus, which is the Postgres extension. And I've looked at going to MySQL and stuff. I'm not totally keen on that after like a little bit more research. I want to stay in the Postgres world.
You looked at moving
Spent a
to
lot
a
of time.
different. Really, tell me why did you that even cross your mind? Because you wanted to use something like Vitesse?
Yeah, so I looked at Vitesse a little bit, and like everything kind of looks nice. I think now it supports foreign key constraints. I think
It does, yeah.
Last time it does now. At the time of doing the main providers, it didn't. So I wasn't totally interested in like dropping all my F keys. But also I'm not like totally sure I really need to. I just don't want to learn MySQL, and like
I
I've
don't
developed
blame
such
you.
like an affinity. Yeah, I've developed such an affinity for Postgres, and I don't like seeing the vibes are important to me. This is going to be like a weird tangent, but the vibes are important to me. And when I look at MySQL, I see things like people complaining about performance issues on like social and everywhere, and more upgrades come out, and there's more degradation in. It gets worse, and it's kind of like I don't know. Whereas Postgres, it's like everything's faster. Everything's faster.
Better.
And the numbers are so much bigger. And I'm like, I love big numbers. Give me those big numbers. And I also find that a lot of the contractors and people that I speak to in the Postgres world are a lot more approachable to me. And there's a lot of Rails Postgres people that I've been able to talk to, and they've been fantastic and helpful. And that's my general approach. If I run into a problem, I try and find experts to talk to.
Right.
And if I find a lot of experts that are very approachable, I'm obviously going to be a little bit more pulled into like that direction, So
y'all's ecosystem, the Rails ecosystem is very heavily Postgres, and you make an interesting point about the experts being approachable. I could name 10 or 15 Postgres experts on Twitter that I could DM right now, but there are very few MySQL experts that I am aware of. Many of them work at the company I used to work at, but there are a few that are independent. But it does seem like there are a lot of Postgres people out there willing and able to help pretty quickly.
Yeah, even like the Crunchy Data team, like I've messaged Craig a bazillion times. I've jumped on calls with them and stuff, and they're very, very. They just help you, and I think they're a little bit more long term. So yeah, I don't know. The energy feels a little bit better in the Postgres space. So I'd rather stay there. The Citus stuff is really interesting to me. Have you done much research into Citus?
I've done a little, but explain. And I actually had Craig on the last one. We talked a little bit about Citus, but explain for the listener what Citus is and maybe what it compares to.
Yeah, sure. So it allows you, it's a Postgres extension. It allows you to basically have a whole bunch of Postgres nodes that all work together. And then you can have what's called, I'm pretty sure it's called a distributed table, if I recall correctly. And then that allows you to give it a shard key. So let's say for me, it's like a tenant ID or a side ID. And then your data kind of gets spread across them. And then you can auto balance and all that kind of stuff. You can spin up new nodes, and it just allows you to scale a little bit more easier. And it means if a node goes down, then you can bring that one back up. It's not like the end of the world. So it allows you to have distributed tables, which Vitesse and all that allow as well. But it remains a Postgres extension, and you can get a cloud solution with Microsoft with the Azure stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, with Azure.
It's super affordable. Yeah, with Azure. They call it some horrific name. It's
something,
Azure
totally
Citus.
esoteric.
Hypercloud or something like that.
Hypercloud.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something. Hyperscale. That's it. Hyperscale Citus is now Azure Cosmos DB for Postgres.
Oh, so it was Hyperscale, and now it's Azure Cosmos, of course.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Good idea. Good name. Good name.
But then the issue with having a large single node is, even if depending on like your backup strategy. So we use continuous protection with Heroku, which is just snapshots regularly, and then you've got the while. And so bring that node back up. It restores a snapshot, replays the while, you're back, and then it runs. It's a lot easier to get multiple nodes up simultaneously than a single node. And so a lot of the Citus benefits is just being able to, if you go down, raise them back up really, really fast. I like that structure a little bit more than having a single node. But at least at this scale, I may consider as a first step just having multiple single nodes have their own responsibility, and then kind of go from there.
So
See
you're
how I feel later.
considering, yeah, if I'm hearing this correctly, you're considering potentially two different sharding strategies. One would be
Yep.
more traditional, where you're sharding on a tenant ID, and so some n number of tenants go per, Postgres, and then you send your queries to the right tenant based on their tenant ID. The other one would be you're sharding based on like not email domain, but like domain in terms of like the application term. So like emails go here, events go here, users go there. And so talk me through this thought process and where you're currently at.
Where I'm currently at is I like the single node approach because once I actually break down my DB, the total DB sizes actually aren't too big. And some of the issue that I have actually with Postgres is there's quite a lot of bloat in there. I think from just updating records, right? Because whenever I send out an email, all those users are getting updated. Anytime an event happens, that user is also getting updated. So I could probably like tune vacuum a little bit, but it's never going to reclaim space until I do a vacuum full. And frankly, I'm not going to do a vacuum full because that's going to lock the table. And so a part of this process, I actually just want to like move to another DB so then I could potentially vacuum those ones independently
On the way out,
or
yeah.
or rebuild on the way out, or rebuild them, or an approach that I've considered, and I actually got this idea from when I was exploring like the Vitesse stuff, is potentially using Rails just to double sync. So just send, and then have like a background job just push that to the other separate DB, and then I can run a background job just to fully sync all the backlog over a time period that I'm very comfortable with. And then that other DB is then, it's getting those inserts fresh. And so it'll potentially be less bloated and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a couple approaches. Another approach I've got is like potentially streaming in an exact replica from one DB to another DB, and then just changing reads and writes. So let's say I'm going from like let's say the emails table. It's all going to the main DB. I can get up a replica, switch that to be able to write to, and then just in Rails, just toggle it over to start writing to the new one, right? So that's also an approach. There's a few ways I can do it. They're not, I'm just trying to pick which one I vibe with the most and it's least stressful.
And which one do you vibe with the most? Like right now, which one are you feeling?
I actually vibe with having multiple single nodes on Crunchy. Because I like the idea of, on the Rails side, just being able to switch over my reads and writes and coordinate with the Crunchy team just to get that one straight on. And I can enter a maintenance period on our app, queue up all those background jobs, switch over the writes, reboot all the instances, and then I'm kind of good to go. And then on that new instance, drop all the other tables because I don't need them anymore, right? And then I'm back up and running.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I can have a full replica of both the instances. So I'm running kind of like two core, switch it only for a couple of tables, drop everything else, and then I've got like a nice clean table or a nice clean database with just what I need. That's like the least stressful route, I think. Yeah. Why are you looking at me like that?
I didn't know if you were gonna keep vibing. You stared off into space. You said, "I think that's the least stressful route," and then you said, "Yeah." So I didn't know if you were second guessing your decision.
No,
there.
because a lot of it's you just gotta explore this stuff, right? And you got to do it a few times and mess up a few times, because this has been my experience trying to get Elastic to work actually. Like just any database, you just got to try a whole bunch of stuff, see which ends up being the most seamless, and then when you find something that is pretty seamless, then then roll it out and commit to it. But I try not to like give myself any like really hardcore deadlines and just take things nice and slow. But I do like having multiple single nodes. Yeah, that's what I want to go with. I'm gonna put that in.
Yeah. There, done. Well, so we got to talk about this, because you said earlier that when you were working with Andrew, you're like, I was learning to code kind of on the side. So that was at most 6 years ago, and now you're a one man show running an ESP with your own mail servers, and you are migrating massive databases. How are you like, talk to me about like your approach to learning things, or like how you've gotten to where you are now, because this is a lot of very complicated stuff. And by your own admission, 6 years ago, you were like, I'm just trying to learn to code. So how did we get here?
I don't know, man. I don't know, man. There's probably so many like easier businesses to run.
Yes.
But in saying that, like, I just wait. Let me think about. Let me think about this. It is complex, but it's also not, right. Like at the end of the day, Bento is kind of like a glorified CRUD app. We take in form submissions, we process them, we put them in a database. We have some callbacks that send emails. That's actually not too tricky.
Okay.
Querying's not too tricky. Elastic is like has a beautiful DSL, is that what you call it? A beautiful querying language to hit to bring in data. Any problem that I've faced, touch wood, I've always been able to overcome, even if it's been horrific and catastrophic. I've always figured it out eventually. And I think having done enough of those where I can figure it out, I have the confidence that I will figure it out. But I also have a little bit of a change in how I used to approach things. So I'm a lot slower in approaching things. I have the budget now to just spin stuff up. And so I'm comfortable just spinning stuff up and trying stuff. And so when I'm working with like a lot of data, there's sometimes no other option than just like rebuilding the world, playing with the world a little bit. And if it doesn't work, just blow it up and try something new, right? And I think that approach works pretty well with me. But when I'm making all these like decisions and where to go, I am very heavily biased of like where I can get help. And so like in terms of my decision for, all right, do I go to Citus or do I go to Crunchy with multiple single nodes? I'm a lot more biased to go to Crunchy because I know that if I run into a scary, hairy problem, I have someone to talk to and I can jump on a call with them and I can just like riff, and that alleviates so much. Like I remember when I hit like 1 terabyte on Heroku, I was like panicked. I was like, I got too much data. Just because I'd never seen a terabyte database before. Yeah. It's like scary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what to look out for. Like, what's transaction wraparound? What's like all this kind of stuff, right? And so I jumped on a guy called Jesse at Heroku, who's now at Crunchy, apparently. They've taken everyone. They've gutted that business out. So I chatted to Jesse and we went through my instance. He told me everything. We talked through stuff. I learned. And like through that process, I'm now confident in a whole bunch of things. And I'm also not paranoid in a lot of things. I think like with databases, knowing what not to be scared of is like one of the largest challenges, being like, hey, I actually don't need to worry about that. Or if I change things, I don't need to worry about that either. And so a lot of my design decisions are going, how do I just not ever worry about this silly thing? And then I'll try and restructure things so I'm never worrying about that silly thing. Same with like, whoa, my database is exploding. All right, well, how about I don't store HTML content in the database? Why don't I put that in S3? Like, maybe that's a smart thing to do, right? Especially when someone's sending out 100,000 emails. Don't do that. So just decisions like that take a lot of the weight off. And I think that's been helpful, being able to run a business, at least of this size and this scale, calmly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So I'm hearing a few things as it relates to being able to run this, what in my opinion is a very difficult business to run. Even if it is just CRUD, it still seems very difficult. One is you've made a lot of decisions optimizing, or at least with an eye towards having a calm business / life. And I think that needs to be stated, because a lot of people are like, oh, I would love a calm business, and then never make decisions that would make their life calmer or easier. So that seems like number one. At least like consider it when you're making a decision. Number two is you now have, I think from what you've said, you now have budget, which is margin to like try some stuff out. So you can,
Explore.
you can get a whole replica of the world and mess it up and then burn it down, and that's totally okay. And then the thing that you keep talking about, which I think is very important, is your relationships in the industry. Like people that you know, like, and trust that you can reach out to and either just have a call with or explicitly hire to help you do stuff. Is there anything else you think, like, do those feel like the three main things towards, like, that have allowed you to have a calm business at this scale?
Yeah, I think so. One, can I give like an example of like a product
Please.
decision that's helped?
Yeah.
So, for example, in Bento, there's obviously a lot of data and a lot of pages load a lot of that data. And sometimes even on like a page like let's say the visitor browser, when you go to people and you see all those users, sometimes that page can have a lot of N+1s, where it got like tags loading, fields loading, sales loading, just a lot, right? And for Postgres, that's not too hard to do, but sometimes that can be slow. And so what I've tried to do is I've tried to remove a lot of the querying out of the web request. So when you load that page, I actually create a WebSocket connection and a background job in a background worker. That builds the world and pumps HTML back into the page. I don't actually ever. That's why Bento is so fast. So when you're going from page, you probably notice Bento is very, very fast.
It is.
But I'm actually never doing a request other than like site ID, user ID, all that. Like if I showed you my querying, every web request is like instant because almost none of it's happening in the web request cycle. All of it is happening in background jobs. Most of it is happening in background jobs, and that has allowed N+1s to be
a background job in response to a request.
Yeah. I mean, you can go do it now. If you go to Bento, it'll have like the spinner that has opened a WebSocket connection. Background job gets processed, and then we're pumping HTML back into the view. And that is why everything feels so snappy.
So when I come back to Bento after leaving a tab open for a long time, it has this notification that's like WebSocket thing has been lost, and I'm this is leaving it open for 24 hours.
That's what that is.
What's it using WebSockets for? Everything is the answer.
Everything. And like another thing is like when you go to flows, I do think I got a Postgres query for this. When you go to flows and every node has stats on it, right?
Yes.
And so I obviously have to do a count on that. Now, if I had to do a count on the web request when you loaded that page,
your host
would explode.
Game over.
What happens if someone has 2,000 nodes on there? Which some people do, right?
And users will be doing stuff, so you know that somebody has 2,000 nodes.
And that's the thing. So users will always be doing stuff, and they'll always be breaking things in like the weirdest ways. And so with that one, what I did, like let's say now talking about flows. With flows, I have it so I'm using like a React Observer library, and when the node comes into view, I create a WebSocket connection that then joins a background queue that does the SQL count, and then it streams it in. And so a lot of the product design decisions have actually been around me being mindful that, okay, I want to be like a little bit more generous on my Postgres instance, and I want to allow it to have time even if a query is not optimized. And so I take that out of the web request, put that in a background job, and then that allows things to be perceived be lightning fast, even if they take a couple of seconds to compute. Because if you click a button and it takes 2 seconds, that sucks. And that happens in every other email marketing provider that I've ever personally used, because they're doing it in the web request. And so it just gives you a lot more grace.
Who could blame them? Everyone does that, Jesse. Everyone but you has. Nobody's figured this out. So what do you send me when I click a button? What do you send me? Just a shell, just like an HTML shell that you then populate?
Depends on the page. So like, it depends on the page. So like, let's say the tags page. People only have 100 tags. Querying that's very easy. So there's no WebSocket for that. But there's a counter on the right-hand side of the tags. Each individual tag has a count of how many people have the tags. That's tag.usertags.count or whatever. That is, that's a WebSocket request. I'm always going to WebSocket request that one because, I don't know, maybe the count's slow, or let's say someone's doing a lot of writes. There's so many things that could go wrong. And so I always push that to yeah, I always push that to a WebSocket and then stream in the HTML.
So have you built like a little kind of like a little homegrown framework to say like on the front end what is being requested and then on the back end like how do you tie all this stuff together in a way that's not bespoke for each time?
Yeah, so it's using Action Cable. So
Okay.
and it's very lightweight code. So I like kind of create a connection to Action Cable, and then I use like Sidekick effectively to create like a background job,
Mhm.
and then I stream a partial or some JSON or whatever, and then that actually populates. I don't even know why this like. I feel like this should catch on because it's very efficient.
This should catch
and it's
on.
very,
This rules. I love this.
yeah, it's very, very handy. Like, and it again, it takes like, for example, let's say an Elastic cluster goes down, like my whole app doesn't break, and I can actually also stream in an error response to say, hey, we're struggling at the moment, and have like a spinner there. So there's other benefits, but especially for those like N+1s, N+1s aren't inherently bad, and you sometimes can't optimize them away a lot of the time, or sometimes there's like not even any point to optimize them away. So you can just load the content a little bit different or think about loading it a little bit different, and I found that to be another calm way to kind of on the product side to make Postgres a little bit easier to work with by just streaming stuff through background workers.
Just giving it a
Yeah.
little bit of time. I like that.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is exceedingly clever. I want to steal this and bring it to Laravel in some cleverly named package.
Yeah, stream blade or something like that.
Streamblade. That's a good. We'll
Blade
workshop it a little
sockets.
bit, but that is a good first. That's a good first step. I like that. No, that's super clever. I didn't realize. I didn't realize that that's how you're doing it. I think the combination of a WebSocket and offloading it to a background job is wild to me.
Because because like what very early on before I started using Elastic, this was the issue. This is where I actually started doing it. When I was predominantly on Postgres, stuff would be occasionally slow. There'd be querying a custom field, and it would be slow. And I hated that the page would take 30 seconds to load. And Heroku has a 30-second timeout. Heroku has a 30-second timeout, right?
And humans have
Now-
like a 4-second timeout. Nobody's waiting around.
Humans have much less than 4. So, and so by re-architecting, I gave myself some grace and a little bit of breathing room. And then I could obviously work out stuff after that. And I obviously restructured and refactored stuff. But yeah, trying to take stuff and responsibility out of the web request has been very, 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 very helpful. Yeah, especially when bringing in a lot of data. Or like, let's say, like a visitor profile page, doing user.events.
Right.
Like even paginating through some of them may have like 10K events, and like no matter how much I kind of optimize that pagination, it can be very, very tricky. And yeah, not optimizing it, it's like sometimes okay if there's a spinner for 3 seconds, like that's okay, and it's not too much stress on the Postgres instance. But having the page take 3 seconds, nada.
Yeah.
So
No, that's no good.
yeah, I think my advice on the product side would just be trying to like re-architect your product in a way that like, give yourself some grace, maybe push stuff off to background jobs, or push stuff off, or just change how you render stuff. So it's not so much an issue.
Okay, so final question on this because my mind is blown. I don't know much about Rails, but so you have this active cable, action cable, active cable.
Action cable.
Action cable. So you have this action cable concept. Do you hand off some sort of unique like action
Job ID?
cable instance ID to the job, or how does the job know who to phone home to?
So Action Cable creates a connection. I think they call it like rooms. So it kind of creates a connection. There's now a persistent connection from like the client to the Action Cable server. So that's unique, and Action Cable keeps a lot of that. Like it handles all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Then from there, I can then I kind of create like a unique job ID on the client side. So it's just like a random hex or whatever.
Sure.
And then that creates the job ID. The job then gets processed, and the job has knowledge of like the job ID and the action cable user, and then I stream it back in, and then the user gets it to populate. This also works really well with like AI type stuff because some of those take a little while. So if I'm doing like a compliance check on an email, it's okay if that takes 20 seconds to load because it's happening in a background job, not a web request. And so that's super useful as well. So action connection gets created, job gets on queued, then job streams down a partial or some JSON to then render in the app. So again, with this theme of making my Postgres calm,
right?
By taking all this, like it's all related. It's all related. It's just taking a lot of the anxiety off me and being able to build super fast apps where the web requests have very low responsibility on the Postgres side.
It's funny because it seems like everything has low responsibility. Like the Postgres has low responsibility, the web request, the background job's just doing a little count. Elastic's just, you've got 4 different Elastics. They're all just doing their own little thing. It's like, who's got the responsibility here? It's all little responsibility all the way around. Not you. It's great. I love it. This is fascinating.
Yeah, so it's different, right? And
it
same,
is
same
different.
With like Redis.
Yeah,
it's different.
Yeah, what
same
does
with
Redis
like Redis.
do?
So Redis, it's like Action Cable has its own Redis instance. Someone's probably going to call me out on how dumb this is, but Action Cable has its own instance. Rails Cache has its own instance. Sidekick has its own instance. Our rate limiter has its own instance. Now, is that overkill? Yes. Is Redis cheap?
Yes.
Not on Heroku, but yes.
Same price it was 10 years ago.
Same price it was 10 years ago, but relatively it's cheap, right? I'm talking, a couple of customers per Redis instance means that I at least have that reliability, and I'm moving in the same direction for Postgres. So this has been my theme. My theme is that I end up I started with one Elastic instance, I started with one Redis instance, and I start kind of breaking them down into much smaller responsibilities, and then that makes the problem set a lot easier to solve. I'll probably go one of the reasons I'll go to single node, like multiple single node instances on Postgres, is that'll be step 1, and then maybe the emails one becomes gigantic, and then I just have that emails database to deal with that. I can then go, hey, you know what, I'm going to move that to Citus, or hey, I'm going to move that to Vitas, because that's a good next step for me. And it just makes things a lot easier to manage, right? Whereas if I just have one big monolith of any of these, it's like, oh boy, this is a little bit stressful. If like, let's say on the Redis side, if I get DDoSed, all right, well now my sidekick's down. That's not great.
It's not great.
No, that's not great. Or now people can't load. I had this one user who left a book on their refresh button on their computer.
That is some Silicon Valley stuff right there.
massive account, right? Complex Elastic query on the people users page, just like refreshing,
just
right?
Hammering,
and just hammering, right?
And they're behind the auth wall. They're inside the castle.
They're inside the castle, right? And so I ended up using Cloudflare to make sure that never happens again. But during that happened, that backlogged. What did that do? That killed my Action Cable Redis instant, which then meant things in the app didn't load. Not great, but because Sidekick was still up and everything else was still up, basically no one could, like, there were spinners, but our app is like people do stuff and then they leave, right? And we're sending emails automatically on their behalf. Everything else continued to run smoothly. Yeah. So having things split means the problems that, by the way, when I was doing that, I was like at a Best Buy on the trip to Canada from Japan with a 2-year-old that had just woken up. Yeah. But having all these small things is very easy to, like, just restart a single instance and all that. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent, but at least
fantastic.
That's how
story.
I think about it.
Great story. We love a good story. So I think the only monolith I'm hearing is your Rails monolith, and you mentioned early on you've got a fast Ruby team working on that. So let's wrap there.
Great.
What's going on the Rails monolith side?
Yeah, so on the Rails monolith side, so Rails 7.2, I think. So Rails 7.2 and obviously like Rails 8 and stuff comes jam packed with really great stuff for multi-tenant DB. And so I want to get my app up to like the latest on, at least on 7, just so I can pull in a lot of that stuff just to make my life a lot easier. Things like joins across multiple databases, all that kind of like good stuff. And by being on the latest version, it just allows a more seamless transition over. And then once that's done, then we can start, experimenting by rebuilding the world and seeing how that kind of, seeing how we're going to orchestrate a lot of that. But yeah, so Rails 7 comes with a lot of, and from my understanding, a lot of it's pulled from GitHub, like how GitHub does multi-tenant DB. So I think GitHub has multiple databases for all kinds of things. And a lot of Rails 7 is kind of in their philosophy of doing things from what I've read. And yeah, I'm probably going to follow that path for the most side of things. So yeah.
Wow. So cool. This has been a delight. Man. Is there so two things. One, anything else on the technical side that we haven't covered that you want to cover?
No. I'm no. I think that's most of it. My big kind of I guess ask for anyone that is trying to like build something is like, don't overcomplicate it. You can stay on a single node for like quite a long time. It's very rare that people are storing like as much data as we are. And from my understanding, like talking to some of the some of the Postgres experts, people are running very large multi terabyte single node instances kind of pretty calmly and well. And a lot of that is like it's just like how you use the database. So your database can get quite large if you use it in a certain way. And so just trying to work out, all right, like how do I want to use this database? Are there ways that I can use it that are less stressful and are a little bit calmer, and then try and like design your app around that. And a lot of the times when you do take some responsibility off the database, I don't know, sometimes you build better products because of it. I think Bento is very, very fast. I think it is like quite delightful to use. And a lot of that is because of the decisions I've had to make because of Postgres, try to make it like a better experience for me, and that's led to a better experience for my users. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels right to me.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Okay, so the last thing I want you to say is give us your pitch for Bento. But before we do that, you are not out on Twitter doing a lot of like thought leadery stuff, but you are a one-person bootstrap company, profitable, calm. So give us give me your pitch to the aspiring, the young Jesse Hanley, the person that wants to be in your position, running a software company without losing their mind, without having to raise VC if they don't want to. How would you encourage the next generation of aspiring builders?
That's a big responsibility. Okay, so like I think something that has been true to me, and I actually mentioned this to like another guy on a demo call who asked me like my advice is like, you got to stay true to, like when you start out, you've kind of got those like rose tinted goggles of like how a startup should be and how a company should be. You follow Basecamp and all that. Mm-hmm. You have to stay true to that, and sometimes that sucks, and sometimes it's actually not too much fun. It's not fun. Bootstrapping is not really that fun. You got to like take money from your own pools of cash. Sometimes you got to pay yourself not that much for a while. Yeah. It takes a really long time. Like I'm seeing one of our competitors that has a bug as their logo. They're multiple times larger than us, but I don't think they're profitable, and it sounds really stressful in there, right? And I'm like, well, I could potentially be like that. I could raise some money, but I don't want to. Like, I love living in Japan. I have a 2-year-old daughter who I absolutely adore. I've been able to be home for all of this time. I love my wife to bits. I'm able to go get lunch with her whenever I want. I can chill. Like, it's a good lifestyle, but I've stayed committed to what I wanted, and I've been okay with the trade-offs of what that's entailed, right? Like, I've been okay with not growing that fast. I've been okay with taking things slow, and it's turned out fine for me. So I think like if you have rose tinted goggles of like the business that you want to build, try not to make compromises. Be like super patient with it. Listen, work obviously very, very hard. I've worked very hard on this business, very, very hard. Every day I work on it, and it's paid off. It's paid off for me. And so I think hard work, staying committed to your ideals, most often figures itself out if you kind of stay in the game long enough. That's the one caveat I want to put. If you stay in the game long enough, you'll hopefully figure it out. Otherwise, maybe try something else. If you've given it a go for 6 years and haven't found product market fit, maybe you should try something else. But
yeah, maybe pivot a little bit.
Yeah,
I like that. But that's a great answer. I put you on the spot there. That's a great answer.
Thanks,
I know that you want to lead a quiet life and work with your hands, but we could use more people like you being vocal on Twitter. But I won't put that on you. That's a lot. But you don't want to wade into those waters.
Yeah, I mean, like slight tangent. Part of I don't want to be a thought leader, and like I don't actually want to attract too many customers. Like this is a weird thing. I don't want to attract too many customers. Like I love that you're a customer. I love that some of your friends are customers. I love that like a lot more of our friends are trying Bento out and using that, and the company is profitable. And like, frankly, like I think I mentioned on the preamble before we like kind of went into this, my rent's like under $1,500 a month, including utilities and stuff. I live in Japan. Food here is like, I can have an amazing like teishoku meal for like $5 to $7. I don't really need too much more money. Our daycare is $4 an hour. We were talking about daycare before this. You know, how much more money do I need? So like
a bunch of people just cursed at you, just screamed out loud at you for that one.
Yeah. So it's like after I paid myself like what I was earning when I was running the agency, I don't really need too much more than that. So yeah, but it took I've got it in the footer of our website. It took to get to this point 6 years and 251 days.
Oh wow, so, we're almost at 7, almost.
Yeah, almost at 7. So it just takes a really long time. Well,
you're doing an incredibly good job, and if you're not, you should be proud of yourself, because this is very inspiring for me. So tell us, I know you don't want too many more customers, but tell us why people should at least consider Bento.
Yeah, so Bento is very good at a couple of things. We're very good at sending marketing email. We send all your newsletters and all that kind of stuff. We're very good at sending automated email. So someone signs up to Aaron's waitlist. You say, hello, I'm Aaron. You're on my waitlist. We're very good at that. We're also very good at a couple of other things in that automation area. And then now we're getting better at sending transactional email. So in the last 2 weeks, we've actually, you know how you hacked on that mailer for Laravel? We now have an official Laravel SDK.
Hey,
with that baked in, you can now say like whatever it is. You can do the mailer Bento thing and the transport. That's what it is, right? Yeah, you can do the transport Bento, and it all just works. And then we've got all these nice Laravel methods. We shipped a Python library. We shipped a new Rails library. Shipped a Swift library for funsies. We're going to do a Unity library so we can serve video game developers. I don't know. It's just fun. There's a guy in called Zach. I actually want to give him a little bit of a shout out. There's a guy in called Zach who lives in Dazaifu, which is some neighborhoods away. He signed up to Bento as a customer, made us the Laravel SDK, and has just kept hacking. He doesn't stop. He's a madman. He's like, I built a Swift library for funsies. Now we've got a Swift library. So Zach's been a machine. I just want to give him a public shout out. So
good job, Zach.
Yeah, I am paying him for his work, but he was like a customer that wanted to like just help out for fun. And so yeah, he's been paying him to build these libraries, and so we've got SDKs coming out the wazoo. So that's been good. So for most things, people, Next.js and all that stuff, most frameworks people are building on that are watching this are dealing with databases. Bento's got very easy ways now and much better docs to get started to send marketing and transactional email. So that's the pitch.
Yep. And I co-sign that. I use you for marketing and transactional. So we do all of our password resets through Bento. Obviously, we send all of our SQLite, Postgres, aaronfrancis.com, screencasting.com, all of those go through Bento. And just, I think yesterday or the day before, I was DMing you about pulling down tags from the API. I use your API for everything. I'm syncing down all the tags, so I know locally when somebody from SQLite signs up for mastering Postgres, I can look and see like, what tags do you have? All right, let's do a sync job to make sure you have all the right tags in Bento, and then I can keep them locally. It's great. I love it. It's great. Great product.
Thanks for saying that, and thanks for being a customer. It like puts food on the
course.
table for my family, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. Well, thank you for doing this. I know we've been trying to do this, but Japan and Texas are not lined up on time zones quite as easily. So I'm glad we finally got to make this work. This has been a delight. Thank you. Thanks for giving us all of your knowledge. And where can people find you online?
On Twitter, we've got Bento @Bento, the handle. And so that's that. And then I think I've tagged my ego's tagged myself in the bio, so you can type in my name. It's Jesse T. Hanley. You can kind of click through there, but it's a lot easier to remember @Bento on Twitter.
Perfect.
And then bentonow.com to start a trial. I don't know.
Okay. Giving them the hard close, Jesse.
You can talk to me this way. Maybe like a give. If anyone wants to like just chat about stuff, or chat about like database stuff, there is a demo link. Just tell me that you don't want to be sold, and I'm happy to chat about database stuff. I'm happy to talk about scaling Rails. I'm happy to talk about anything that like we've covered in here, even just as like a friend, because building apps is hard, building apps is stressful, and it's a lot easier when there's approachable people out there to talk to. And so open invite for anyone to click the demo link and just tell me ahead, hey, this isn't about Bento, I just want to talk about Rails, and I'll happily talk to anyone for 30 minutes about whatever problem they've got. So yeah, there's
awesome.
If anyone wants it.
So generous. Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, if you like this episode, please either, I guess, subscribe on YouTube, Aaron D. Francis, or there is an RSS feed somewhere. It's in the show notes, so go down there and find that. And I'll put links to everything Jesse does and has mentioned in the show notes. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.